And finally, let's focus on the tools and the specific methods that we can use to attack web applications. So this is the list of tools that some of them we will use during the demonstration. Some of them I encourage you to test out yourself. So first of all, the Swiss knife of web application hacking is of course Burp Suite. So this is the best investment you can make into your web application security analyst career. So despite relative not that much effective performance, I would say, yeah, so it's in Java, and it requires a lot of RAM and tons of disk space to store project files in between the runs. Burp Suite is worth every minute you use it and every buck you spend on it. So it's a collection of tools, basically. So it's Suite because there are different tools in it, and some of them are for analysis, some of them are for attacking, and there is the extension mechanism that allows you connect external plugins to it, right? Available as open source or commercially, and you can write your own. Okay, so that's a really cool tool, and you definitely have to use it. Despite that, it comes in two flavors. It has a free version that is somewhat limited in functionality, and it has commercial version that is not very expensive. So you have to try it and buy a license if you really like it. The equivalent, I would say, is OSBZAP, which is also designed in Java. So the purpose of the software is pretty much the same, however the approach slightly differs. It's also basically a intermediate proxy, right? A proxy that intercepts all the traffic of your client and the server, and allows you to perform different activities against that traffic. So it also has a lot of extensions, and it also has big potential. However, the functionality slightly differs, and on a larger scale, yeah, in the end of the day, I would recommend Burp Suite, but OWASP OWASP-ZAP also has some functionality that is quite important. Previously, I tried to use them both, yeah, as two proxy cascading one before another in order to use the functionality of both to the most extent. However, now I just stick to Burp Suite, and the OWASP-ZAP is just, I don't know, I just update it once in a while. W3AF is a framework for scanning and attacking, right? So it also has different functions that allow you to automate routine job within a web application security engagement. Skipfish, or a more graphical interface around it by subgraph called Vega, is a highly aggressive scanning engine, so it's really important to filter out manually the false positives that are numerous, really. So it's important to filter all its output, and it's important to tune it in order to not overload the web application while scanning. So Skipfish is basically created by Google, yeah, so it originally is their internal security scanner for web applications, and Subgraph is a more convenient way to use it. What is Mitim Proxy? It's a third tool in a row. Yeah, very similar to Burp Suite and the OWASP-ZAP. However, it's slightly limited in functionality, but it's also extendable, right? You can write your own extensions for it, and it's completely command line. Okay, now it has web interface in the latest version, but you can use that from command line. So it's really convenient if you are more used to the command line interface. So that's the way to train yourself in working with HTTP traffic on the console, which is not really what many people would like to do. But if you are really a Linux or Mac OS user, the power user, you will certainly like it. It's and it's much less resource demanding, I would say. Okay, so yeah, you can script that, you can work with the web interface if you like, but you should certainly try it out. What is SQL Map? SQL Map is the most comprehensive SQL injection scanner and exploit toolkit. So it is really flexible, so it can be configured in many different ways and styles. It has many different not that apparent options, and I will try to show you the most of them, the most useful of them. It can be used from within Burp Suite, for example, so you can just throw SQL Map comments out of Burp Suite extensions, or it can be run as a server and accept the request via its own API and run SQL injection, scanning, and exploitation tasks in the background. So it's quite sophisticated, and it's really useful when it comes to database attacking, especially through vulnerable web applications. What is NICTA? I think I mentioned it in the other sections of this chapter. So NICTA is basically a script on Perl that is fingerprinting the web application, the web server as well, and gives you a lot of information of their specifics. Okay, so in the early stages of attacking a web application, it's really essential to start from NICTA scan. It's not really exploiting anything, so it's more of a purely fingerprinting tool. It will find a lot of interesting paths. It will inform you about the version of the software on the server side, so it's a good start for any web application security engagement. What is XSS Hunter? So as I said, XSS is really prevalent, but what happens too much, I would say, is the underestimation of XSS potential, when it comes to compromise of the client side of the web application. So what normally happens when the pen tester finds out an XSS, they first of all, they demonstrate that by popping up a window, a prompt or an alert, on the web page, and sometimes they think that's enough. That's not true, so XSS can run any JavaScript in the browser if exploited properly, and that can result first of all in cookie stealing, which is quite convenient when it comes to session hijacking and interception. And of course you can do some other things that are available to JavaScript methods. For example, you can steal all the DOM model of the document, right? You of course can steal all the HTTP parameters, such as all the headers, all the CGI environment that is going to be passed to the server. You can make screenshots of current browser page, you can make all that stuff. You can run keylogger, on the web page, even so. So it's really very underestimated. I mean, the XSS vulnerability is really underestimated in its potential, but there are ways to extend that potential, by these two things, XSS Hunter and Beef. So XSS Hunter is limiting you to some extent, yeah, so you just collect information, and beef is the way to exploit that further. Okay, XSS Hunter is actually an open source product or a service. You can use it as a service, so just deploy it yourself. I prefer to install it for yourself because, yeah, when you read through the code, you understand what I'm talking about. Yeah, so it's quite a typical open source security product, you know. So there are vulnerabilities in it by itself, so it's not very secure to use it in production without some slight changes that I recommend to make. And beef is yeah, beef already was mentioned, and I will show how to use it to exploit some XSS vulnerabilities. It's really cool and may give you an idea of how much you can do beyond just showing alerts and pop-ups in browser windows by XSS. Some final considerations about what you should do while attacking web applications. Yeah, so first of all, do not hold yourself back from discovering as much of its legitimate functionality as possible. Okay, so there are, of course, different ways to do that. You can just spider the application, like legitimately, right? So just going through all the links it has internally, all the relative and absolute URLs it contains. Of course, you can fuzz a bit. Yeah, you can take the collection of URLs, either from known applications or just from robots.txt files in the internet, right? Many of them are already in SecLists repository. Yeah, so in discovery section of it, you can find different web URLs. You can just put into your own script or put into Burp Suite a repeater or intruder and do your mapping automatically. Of course, fuzzing, yeah, a lot of fuzz strings, a lot of collections of fuzzing data is in SecList repository too. So starting from fuzzing different entry points, you can cause, of course, error conditions, which may hint you about what's going on there and whether it's of any perspective to continue processing that specific entry point. And of course, you can use so-called polyglots, yeah, for different vulnerabilities, for XXC, for SQLI, for XSS, and so on. So there are different context-based strings that when put into different entry points can result in just showing you that a specific manner of exploiting a specific vulnerability is possible in this particular entry point. So there are a lot of interesting things in sec lists, and I will show it in the demonstration video. Of course, reviewing the supply chain is crucial. Yeah, so known vulnerable components happen all the time. The use of code has its advantages for security, and of course it has its drawbacks. So be very, very put a lot of attention to it. It's really something that can save you a lot of time while pen testing. Think about what are the specifics of your scope when it comes to web applications, because in modern cloud and distributed architectures, when you have a lot of load balancers and a lot of actual services and servers, and your specific requests are routed between them, and you are never dealing with some actual hosts, right? So your requests are processed by some virtual entities that can reside on different physical infrastructure components from request to request, right? So think about it, because mapping all those elements can be tricky sometimes. It's it's important to see the difference between different responses. Maybe something will come from a later version of a web server and something from a previous version, and these slight differences will give you hints about where to put more attention, where to try to find more vulnerabilities, because the monoculture is rare currently. Yeah, everyone is trying to use as many types of different technologies as possible, and there are different web application firewalls that can be exploitable by themselves, and yeah, that's quite diverse, and mapping all the different types of architecture elements before trying to attack each of them is crucial. And yeah, the final point is the most critical, I guess. Yeah, so all the time you automate your activities while trying to hack into a web application, remember that security testing is poor for web application currently, yeah, in the industry, and functional testing is more or less okay, but still it lacks the completeness. Yeah, so be ready to deal with the fact that your actions could cause service level downgrade, increase of response time, yeah, the latency of responses, and even cause denial of service conditions. So always before you're starting to load the application to really generate a lot of traffic and give a lot of input data, prepare your client for that. Yeah, so give them warnings and work on the protocol of issue resolution once a production incident happens, and that happens frequently. Okay, be ready for that and prepare your client for that beforehand. Choose some windows of downtime. I mean, time windows where the downtime will not harm their business, for example, or try to do those activities on a test environment that replicates, yeah, the production, and allows you to draw the same conclusions about the security level, yeah, without harming the quality of your penetration testing results. And a few words about the methodology. So yeah, of course, the final message is that Open Web Application Security Project is the source of a lot of important information, a lot of wisdom collected from the best professionals in the industry. And currently you can think about bug bounty movement, bug bounty industry, I would say. Yeah, so it's a part of security industry already, and it's quite massive and it produces a lot of methodical results. You can think of it as of your training field, yeah, as your gym. You can use and train your skills at, and bug bounty community is producing a lot of really valuable updates to pen testing methodologies right now. So pen testing historically has been developing not that fast, yeah, as bug bounty community is developing now. So a lot of input and a lot of updates to the methods and the techniques we are using in penetration tests are coming from bug bounty, because yeah, crowdsourcing penetration testing was a bright idea. Yeah, its strategic value is questionable, but for the reasons of development our toolkits and our methodologies we employ while pen testing, it's gold. Yeah, so it's producing a lot of valuable input, and don't forget about that when doing web application penetration testing, especially because bug bounty spans over that field and covers it completely. All the internet giants already have bug bounty programs, and yeah, I will show you where to find a lot of interesting information, a lot of reports about existing and fixed bugs in high-profile targets.